Um, straight USB. I'm not sure that's going to help. Is that any better? Yeah, I'm back now. So, can you hear me better? Is this better or is this still lagging? Thanks for the answers there, kids. That's really helpful. But I'm glad you raided. By the way, I've got beer. So, cheers. So, is there anyone listening now, or is it just
Oh, oh my God, my. This is my camera. It's from the laptop. How is that? Reconnection successful, apparently. Can you hear me or not? Can you hear me? Can someone just tell me what's going on? Because I'm a bit lost now after all that. We can hear you. Can you see me? It doesn't seem to be lagging so bad. I've given up on the Wi-Fi. At 4 FPS, you got it. Um, uh, I've actually got it on. Well, you're gonna have to put up with it. I'm actually going through my data right now, so that's how bad the Wi-Fi is. This is through my data on my phone. Um, but that's fine then. So you don't need to watch me, do you? We're doing storybooks. Um, 4 frames per second, Dad. You can call me that for a while if you want. Interesting location. Yes, it is. Um, it is an interesting location. Piano in the background. Um, I'm sorry. I'm sure that I can probably adjust something on OBS, which is what I'm using. Um, mm, 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 output. Maybe I can just lower the bit rate. Would that be right, guys? If I lower the bit rate a little bit, the kbps, would that help? This is a 2009 Skype call. Are you even old enough to remember that? Some of you. Don't do anything. I love it. What if I put the bit rate down? No, that's the audio bit rate. We want to mess with that. Video bit rate, eh? What if I put that down? Does anybody know about this? Is Logan still here? Would that help? Try that. Yes, thank you, Cactalius. So I'm going to go down to, I don't know, 5,000 kbps. There we go. Apply. Okay. I don't know. Is that any better? Michael, I was born yesterday. That's nice. Happy first day of life. Do it. Logan knows more about this than me, though, so Mum and I are equally in the dark. Although, arguably, he's more dark than I am. How old do you think we are? I've got no idea. Some of you could be 59 for all I know, and that's good. Like to have some oldies on the stream. All right, I'm going to settle myself in. Whatever else anybody else does. TeamSpeak. Oh God, I'm glad I don't have to use any of those. Improve slightly. Go lower even. Thank you. Somebody actually. Coming. I'm going to go to 4,000. What the hell? 4,350. No. 4,400 feels like a good number. We're going to go with 4,400, following the intuitive thing. How's that? Is that still freezing, but it's def better? Oh, I can go as low as anything, I think. Go to 3,000. All right. This is 4,400. Isn't this fun? We're all working it out together. Oh, dear. I'm so not tech savvy. I'm very good at many other things. I'm going down to 3,000. Let's see what happens. Drop it all the way to 3,000 kbps video bitrate. Apply. Okay. How's that? This is 3,000. How we doing? Whoop whoop. Oh, there were grenades being thrown? That sounds exciting. It's getting better. All right. How low dare we go? Let's try 2,500 and then I guess we'll set to 2,500 kbps video bitrate. Apply and okay. There we go. It's 2,500 now, guys. It's probably as smooth as we're going to get. But you can hear me okay. That's the main thing, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Logan's trying to steal your audience. It should be pointed out, actually, he brought an audience across. So thank you, Logan, for your raid. Much appreciated. Including you, Prickly. I can see that. Damn, that's good. You'll be wondering what I'm drinking. Flensburger Strandlager. It is lagging, Jaja D, and that's the best it's going to get because I'm literally going through my data on my phone because the Wi-Fi in this place is bad. So that's what it is. Disable the preview window in OBS if you have it on. What does that mean? Is that me seeing myself? Disable the preview window. I will remember. That's not too hard. Disable preview window OBS. Hang on. Alright guys, I'm just checking something out. No, it's not even doing that. Dude. Let's forget that. I think that's just going to screw that up. Let's keep that up there. Are you asking me? Yes, trombone, Judge RD. I used to play trombone a bit. I played for theatre occasionally and percussion. Oh, sorry, Valeria. Yeah, that just sucks, doesn't it? FPS. Well, I think I was fiddling with the FPS rating. No, maybe I wasn't. Frames per second. I thought I saw something, but I honestly don't know where it is now. Drop frames. Sorry, I'm getting messages coming in here. It's not as bad as it is. Well, so I guess... yeah, exactly. So I'm just trying to find... But I don't know where that is. I've gone to settings. So... It might be now that we're already on that I can't change any of this. Common FPS values. Hello. Yeah, I think because I'm streaming already. Video output is currently active. Please turn off any outputs. Okay. Somebody needs to give me a lesson on this thing. I might be a good voice actor and all that, but I cannot for the life of me understand how this works. It's good enough. Okay, I will take the general consensus and stop fiddling. We're at cracked ice here, please, homie. What does that even mean, cracked ice? That sounds wrong. And I believe we got to page... we even made a note of this, didn't we, Finn? 107. A very staggered read-through to the poem. Okay. Oh, Kenan, I love that. Let's see. Let's go back just a little bit to Sir Joseph. Why, no, said Sir Joseph, referring to the letter. Not quite. Very near, not quite. He came up to London, it seems, to look for employment, trying to better himself. That's his story. And being found at night asleep in a shed, was taken into custody and carried next morning before the alderman. The alderman observes, very properly, that he is determined to put this sort of thing down, and that if it will be agreeable to me to have Will Fern put down, he will be happy to begin with him. Let him be made an example of by all means, returned the lady. Last winter, when I introduced pinking and eyelet holing among the men and boys in the village as a nice evening employment, he had the lines, "Oh, let us love our occupations, bless the squire and his relations, live upon our daily rations, and always know our proper stations," set to music on the new system for them to sing the while. This very Fern, I see him now, touched that hat of his and said, "I humbly ask your pardon, my lady, but aren't I something different from a great girl?" I expected it, of course. Who can expect anything but insolence and ingratitude from that class of people? That is not to the purpose, however. Sir Joseph, make an example of him. Coughed Sir Joseph. Mr. Fish, if you'll have the goodness to attend. Mr. Fish immediately seized his pen and wrote from Sir Joseph's dictation. Private. My dear sir, I am very much indebted to you for your courtesy in the matter of the man William Fern, of whom I regret to add I can say nothing favourable. I have uniformly considered myself in the light of his friend and father, but having been repaid, a common case, I grieve to say, with ingratitude and constant opposition to my plans. He is a turbulent and rebellious spirit. His character will not bear investigation. Nothing will persuade him to be happy when he might. Under these circumstances, it appears to me, I own, that when he comes before you again, as you informed me he promised to do tomorrow, pending your inquiries, I think he may be so far to be relied upon. His committal for some short term as a vagabond would be a service to society, and would be a salutary example in a country where, for the sake of those who are, through good and evil report, the friends and fathers of the poor, as well as with the view to that, generally speaking, misguided class themselves, examples are greatly needed. And I am, and so forth and so on. It appears, remarked Sir Joseph, when he had signed his letter, and Mr. Fish was sealing it, as if this were ordained, really. At the close of the year, I wind up my account and strike my balance even with William Fern. Trotty, who had long ago relapsed and was very low-spirited, stepped forward with a rueful face to take the letter. "With my compliments and thanks," said Sir Joseph. "Stop! Stop!" echoed Mr. Fish. "You have heard, perhaps," said Sir Joseph oracularly, "certain remarks into which have been led respecting the solemn period of time at which we have arrived, and the duty imposed upon us of settling our affairs and being prepared. You have observed that I don't shelter myself behind my superior standing in society, but that Mr. Fish, that gentleman, has a cheque-book at his elbow, and is in fact here to enable me to turn over a perfectly new leaf and enter on the epoch before us with a clean account. Now, my friend, can you lay your hand upon your heart and say that you also have made preparations for a new year?" "I am afraid, sir," stammered Trotty, looking meekly at him, "that I am a little behind with the world." "Behindhand with the world," repeated Sir Joseph Bowley in a tone of terrible distinctness. I'm afraid, sir," faltered Trotty, "that there's a matter of 10 or 12 shillings owing to Mrs. Chickenstalker." "To Mrs. Chickenstalker," repeated Sir Joseph in the same tone as before. A shop, sir," exclaimed Toby in the general. "Also a little money on account of rent. Very little, sir. It oughtn't to be owing, I know, but we've all been hard put to, indeed." Sir Joseph looked at his lady, and at Mr. Fish, and at Trotty, one after another, twice all round, and then made a despondent gesture with both hands at once, as if he gave the thing up altogether. How a man, even among this improvident, impracticable race, an old man, a man grown grey, can look a new year in the face with his affairs in this condition, how he can lie down on his bed at night and get up again in the morning, and there, he said, turning his back on Trotty, take the letter, take the letter." I hardly wish it was otherwise, sir," said Trotty, anxious to excuse himself. "But we've been tried very hard." Sir Joseph still repeating, "Take the letter, take the letter," and Mr. Fish not only saying the same thing, but giving additional force to the requests by motioning the bearer to the door, he had nothing for it but to make his bow and leave the house. And in the streets poor Trotty pulled his worn old hat down on his head, to hide the grief he felt at getting no hold on the new year anyway. He didn't even lift his hat to look up at the bell tower when he came to the old church on his return. He halted there a moment from habit, and knew that it was growing dark and that the steeple rose above him, indistinct and faint in the murky air. He knew, too, that the chimes would ring immediately, and that they sounded to his fancy at such a time like voices in the clouds. But he made only the more haste to deliver the alderman's letter and get out of the way before they began, for he dreaded to hear them tagging friends and fathers," to the burden they had rung out last. Toby discharged himself of his commission, therefore, with all possible speed, and setting off trotting homeward, but what with his pace, which was at best an awkward one in the street, and what with his hat, which didn't improve it, he trotted against somebody in less than no time, and was sent staggering out into the road. "I beg your pardon, I'm sure," said Trotty, pulling up his hat in great confusion, and between the hat and the torn lining, fixing his head into a kind of beehive, "I hope I haven't hurt no one." As to hurting anybody, Toby was not such an absolute Samson, but that he was much more likely to hurt himself, and indeed he had flown out into the road like a shuttlecock. He had such an opinion of his own strength, however, that he was in real concern for the other party, and said again, "I hope I ain't hurt you." The man against whom he had run, a sun-browned, sinewy, country-looking man with grizzled beard and hair and a rough chin, stared at him for a moment, as if he suspected him to be in jest. But satisfied of his good faith, he answered, "No, friend, you've hurt not me." "Nor the child, I hope," said Trotty. "Nor the child," returned the man. "I thank you kindly." As he said so, he glanced at a little girl he carried in his arms, asleep, and shading her face with the long end of the poor handkerchief he wore about his throat, went on slowly. The tone in which he said, "I thank you kindly," penetrated Trotty's heart. He was so jaded and footsore and so soiled with travel, and looked about him so forlorn and strange that it was a comfort to him to be able to thank anyone, no matter for how little. Toby stood gazing after him as he plodded wearily away, with the child's arm clinging around his neck. At the figure in the worn shoes, now the very shade and ghost of shoes, rough leather leggings, common frock, and broad-slouched hat, Trotty stood gazing, blind to the whole street, and at the child's arm clinging round its neck. Before he merged into the darkness, the traveller stopped, and looking round and seeing Trotty standing there yet, seemed undecided whether to return or go on. After doing first the one, then the other, he came back, and Trotty went halfway to meet him. "You can tell me, perhaps," said the man with a faint smile, "and if you can, I'm sure you will. I'd rather ask you than another, where Alderman Cute lives." "Close at hand," replied Toby. "I'll show you his house with pleasure." "I was to have gone to him elsewhere tomorrow," said the man, accompanying Toby. "But I'm uneasy under suspicion, and want to clear myself, and want to be free to go and seek my bread. I don't know where. So maybe you'll forgive me my going to his house tonight." "It's impossible," cried Toby with a start. "That's your name, Fern." "Eh?" cried the other, turning on him in astonishment. "Fern, Will Fern," said Trotty. "That's my name," replied the other. "Why then," cried Trotty, seizing him by the arm and looking cautiously around, "for heaven's sake, don't go to him. Don't go to him. He'll put you down as sure as you ever was born. Here, come up this alley, and I'll tell you what I mean. Don't go to him." His new acquaintance looked as if he thought him mad, but he bore him company nevertheless. When they were shrouded from observation, Trotty told him what he knew and what character he had received and all about it. The subject of his history listened to it with a calmness that surprised him. He did not contradict or interrupt it once. He nodded his head now and then, more in corroboration of an old and worn-out story, it appeared, than in refutation of it. And once or twice threw back his hat and passed his freckled hand over a brow, where every furrow he had ploughed seemed to set its image in a little. But he did no more. "It's true enough in the main," he said. "Master, I could sift grain from husk here and there, but let it be as 'tis. What odds? I've gone against his plans, to my misfortune, and can't help it. I should do the like tomorrow. As to my character, them gentlefolks will search and pry and have it as free from spot or speck in us afore they'll help us to try good word. Well, I hope they don't lose good opinion as easy as we do, or their lives is strict indeed and hardly worth the keeping. For myself, master, I never took with that hand, holding it before him, what wasn't my own, and never held it back from work, however hard or poorly paid. Whoever can deny it, let him chop it off. But when work won't maintain me like a human creature, and when my living is so bad that I'm hungry out of doors and in, when I see a whole working life begin that way, go on that way, and end that way without a chance or change, then I say to the gentlefolks, keep away from me. Let my cottage be, my doors is dark enough without your darkening of them more. Don't look for me to come up into the park to help them the show when there's a birthday or a fine speech-making or what not. Act your plays and games without me, and be welcome to 'em and enjoy 'em. Where naught to do with one another, I'm best left alone." Seeing that the child in his arms had opened her eyes and was looking about her in wonder, he checked himself to say a word or two of foolish prattle in her ear, and stand her on the ground beside him. Then, slowly winding one of her long tresses round and round his rough forefinger like a ring, while she hung about his dusty leg, he said to Trotty, "I'm not a cross-grained man by nature, I believe, and easy satisfied, I'm sure. I bear no ill will against none of 'em. I only want to live like one of Almighty's creatures. I can't, I don't, and so there's a pit dig between me and them that can do. There's others like me. You might tell 'em off by hundreds and by thousands sooner than by ones." Trotty knew he spoke the truth in this and shook his head to signify as much. I've got a bad name this way, said Fern, and I'm not likely, I'm afraid, to get a better. 'Tain't lawful to be out of sorts, and I am out of sorts, though God knows I'd sooner bear a cheerful spirit if I could. I don't know as this alderman could hurt me much by sending me to jail. But without a friend to speak a word for me, he might do it, and you see, pointing downward with his finger at the child, she has a beautiful face, said Trotty. Oh, yes, replied the other in a low voice as he gently turned it up with both his hands towards his own and looked upon it steadfastly. I've thought so many times. I've thought though when my hearth was cold and cupboard very bare. I thought so t'other night when we were all taken like two thieves. But they shouldn't try their little face too much, should they, Lillian? That's hardly fair upon a man. He sunk his voice so low and gazed upon her with an air so stern and strange that Toby, to divert the current of his thoughts, inquired if his wife were living. I never had one, he returned, shaking his head. She's my brother's child, an orphan. 9-year-old, though you'd hardly think it, but she's tired and worn out now. They'd have taken a care on her, the Union, 28 mile away from where we live, between four walls, as they took care of my old father when he couldn't work no more, though he didn't trouble him long. But I took her instead, and she's lived with me ever since. Her mother had a friend once in London here. We're trying to find her and to find work too, but it's a large place. Never mind. More room for us to walk in about, eh, Lily? Meeting the child's eyes with a smile which melted Toby more than tears, he shook him by the hand. I don't so much as know your name, he said, but I've opened my heart free to you, for I'm thankful to you with good reason. I'll take your advice and keep clear of this. Justice, suggested Toby. Ah, he said, if that's the name they give him. Yes, this Justice. And tomorrow we'll try whether there's better fortune to be met with somewheres near London. Good night. Happy New Year. Stay, cried Trotty, catching his hand as he relaxed his grip. Stay. The New Year can never be happy to me if we part like this. This New Year can never be happy to me if I see the child and you go wandering away and don't know where without a shelter for your heads. Come with me. I'm a poor man, living in a poor place, but I can give you lodging for one night and never miss it. Come home with me. Here, I'll take her, cried Trotty, lifting up the child. A pretty one. I'd carry 20 times her weight and never know I'd got it. Tell him if I go too quick for you, I'm very fast, I always was. Trotty said this, taking about 6 of his trotting paces to one stride of his fatigued companion, and with his thin legs quivering again beneath the load he bore. Why, she's as light, said Trotty, trotting in his speech as well as in his gait, for he couldn't bear to be thanked and dreaded a moment's pause. As light as a feather, lighter than a peacock's feather, a real great deal lighter. Here we are, and here we go. Round this first turning to the right, Uncle Will, and past the pump, and sharp up off to the passage to the left, right opposite the public house. Here we are, and here we go. Cross over, Uncle Will, and mind the kidney pieman at the corner. Here we are, here we go. Down the mews here, Uncle Will, and stop at the black door with Mr. T. Veck, ticket porter, wrote upon the board. And here we are, and here we go. And here we are indeed, my precious Meg, surprising you. With which words Trotty, in a breathless state, set the child down before his daughter in the middle of the floor. The little visitor looked once upon Meg, and doubting nothing in that face, but trusting everything she saw there, ran into her arms. Here we go, and here we go, here we are, cried Trotty, running round the room and choking audibly. Here, Uncle Will, here's a fire now, eh? Why don't you come to the fire? And here we are, and here we go. Meg, my precious darling, where's the kettle? Here it is, here it goes. It'll boil in no time. Trotty really had picked up the kettle somewhere or other in the course of his wild career, and now put it on the fire. while Meg, seating the child in a warm corner, knelt down on the ground before her and pulled off her shoes and dried her wet feet on a cloth. And she laughed at Trotty too, so pleasantly, so cheerfully, that Trotty could have blessed her where she kneeled, for he had seen that, when they entered, she was sitting by the fire in tears. "Why, father," said Meg, "you're crazy tonight, I think. I don't know what the bells would say to that. Poor little feet, how cold they are." "They're warmer now," exclaimed the child. "They're quite warm now." No, said Meg. "We've rubbed them half enough. We're so busy, so busy. And when they're done, we'll brush out the damp hair. And when that's done, we'll bring some colour to the poor pale face with fresh water. And when that's done, we'll be so gay and brisk and happy." The child, in a burst of sobbing, clasped her round the neck, caressed her fair cheek with its hand, and said, "Oh, Meg, oh, dear Meg." Toby's blessings could have done no more. Who could do more? "Why, father," cried Meg after a pause. "Here I am, and here I go, my dear," said Trotty. "Good gracious me," said Meg. "He's crazy. He's put the dear child's bonnet on the kettle and hung the lid between the door." "I didn't go for to do it, my love," said Trotty, hastily repairing his mistake. "Meg, my dear." Meg looked towards him and saw that he had elaborately stationed himself behind the chair of their male visitor, where with many mysterious gestures he was holding up the sixpence he had earned. "I see, my dear," said Trotty, "as I was coming in, half an ounce of tea lying somewhere on the stairs, and I'm pretty sure there was a bit of bacon too, as I don't remember where it was exactly. I'll go myself and try and find them." With this inscrutable artifice, Toby withdrew to purchase the viands he had spoken of for ready money at Mrs. Chickenstalker's, and presently came back, pretending he had not been able to find them at first in the dark. "But here they are at the last," said Trotty, setting out the tea things. "All correct. I was pretty sure it was tea and a rasher. So it is. Meg, my pet, if you'll just make the tea while your unworthy father toasts the bacon, we shall be ready immediate." "It's a curious circumstance," said Trotty, proceeding in his cookery with the assistance of a toasting fork, "curious but well known to my friends, that I never care myself for rashers nor for tea. I like to see other people enjoy 'em," said Trotty, speaking very loud to impress the fact upon his guest. "But to me as food, they're very disagreeable." Yet Trotty sniffed the savour of the hissing bacon, as if he liked it. And when he poured the boiling water in the teapot, looking lovingly down into the depths of that snug cauldron, and suffered the fragrant steam to curl upon his nose and writhe and wreathe his head and face in a thick cloud, however, for all this, he neither ate nor drank, except at the very beginning a mere morsel for form's sake, which he appeared to eat with infinite relish, but declared was perfectly uninteresting to him. No. Trotty's occupation was to see Will Fern and Lillian eat and drink, and so was Meg's. And never did spectators at a city dinner or court banquet find such high delight in seeing others feast, although it were a monarch or a pope, as those two did in looking on that night. Meg smiled at Trotty, Trotty laughed at Meg. Meg shook her head and made belief to clap her hands, applauding Trotty. Trotty conveyed in a dumb show unintelligible narratives of how and when and where he had found their visitors to Meg, and they were happy, very happy. "Although," thought Trotty sorrowfully as he watched Meg's face, "that match is broken off, I see." "No, I'll tell you what," said Trotty after tea. "The little one, she sleeps with Meg, I know." "With good Meg?" cried the child, caressing her. "With Meg?" "That's right," said Trotty, "and I shouldn't wonder if she kissed Meg's father, won't she? I'm Meg's father." Mightily delighted Trotty was when the child went timidly towards him, and having kissed him, fell back upon Meg again. "Well, she's as sensible as Solomon," said Trotty. "Here we come, and here we... No, we don't. I mean that I... What was I saying, Meg, my precious?" Meg looked towards their guest, who leaned upon her chair, and with his face turned from her, fondled the child's head half hidden in her lap. To be sure, said Toby, to be sure, I don't know what I'm rambling on about tonight. My wits are wool gathering, I think. Will Fern, you come along with me. You're tired to death and broke down for want of rest. You come along with me. The man still played with the child's curls, still leaned up Meg's chair, still turned away his face. He didn't speak, but in his rough, coarse fingers clenching and expanding in the air, in the fair hair of the child, there was an eloquence that said enough. Yes, yes, said Trotty, answering unconsciously what he saw expressed in his daughter's face. Take her with you, Meg. Get her to bed, there. Now, Will, I'll show you where you lie. It's not much of a place, only a loft, but having a loft, I always say, is one of the great conveniences of living in a mews, and till this coach house and stable gets a better let, we live here cheap. There's plenty of sweet hay up there belonging to a neighbour, and it's as clean as hands, and Meg can make it. Cheer up, don't give away. New heart for new year, always. The hand released from the child's hair had fallen, trembling, into Trotty's hand. So Trotty, talking without intermission, led him out as tenderly and easily as if he had been a child himself. Returning before Meg, he listened for an instant at the door of her little chamber, an adjoining room. The child was murmuring a simple prayer before lying down to sleep, and when she had remembered Meg's name, dearly, dearly, so her words ran, it was some short time before the foolish little old fellow could compose himself to mend the fire and draw his chair to the warm hearth. But when he had done so, and he had trimmed the light, he took his newspaper from his pocket and began to read. Carelessly at first, and skimming up and down the columns, but with an earnest and a sad attention very soon. For this same dreaded paper redirected Trotty's thoughts into the channel they had taken all that day, and with which the day's events had so marked out and shaped. His interest in the two wanderers had set him on another course of thinking, and a happier one for a time, but being alone again and reading of the crimes and the violences of the people, he relapsed into his former train. In this mood he came to an account, and it was not the first he had ever read, of a woman who had laid her desperate hands not only on her own life, but on that of her young child. A crime so terrible and so revolting to his soul dilated with the love of Meg, that he let the journal drop, and fell back in his chair appalled. Unnatural and cruel, Toby cried, unnatural and cruel, none but people who were bad at heart, born bad, who had no business on the earth, could do such deeds. It's so true. Oh, I've heard today too, just too full of proof we're bad. The Chimes took up the words so suddenly, burst out so loud and clear and sonorous that the bells seemed to strike him in his chair. And what was that, they said? Toby Weck, waiting for you, Toby. Toby Weck, waiting for you, Toby. Come and see us, drag him to us, haunt and hunt him, break his slumbers. Toby Veck, door open wide, Toby. Toby Weck, door open wide, Toby. Then fiercely back to their impetuous strain again, and ringing in the very bricks and plasters of the walls. Toby listened. Fancy. His remorse for having run away from them that afternoon. No, nothing of that kind. Again and again, a dozen times yet, haunt and hunt him, drag him to us, deafening the whole town. Meg, said Trotty softly, tapping at her door, do you hear anything? I hear the bells, Father. Surely they're very loud tonight. Is she asleep? Said Toby, making an excuse for peeping in. So peacefully and happily. I can't leave her yet, though, Father. Look how she holds my hands. Meg, whispered Trotty, listening. Listen to the bells. She listened, with her face toward him all the time, but it underwent no change. She didn't understand them. Trotty withdrew, resumed his seat by the fire, and once more listened by himself. He remained here a little time. It was impossible to bear it. Their energy was dreadful. "If the tower door is really open," said Toby, hastily laying aside his apron, but never thinking of his hat, "what's to hinder me from going up into the steeple and satisfying myself? If it's shut, I don't want any other satisfaction. That's enough." He was pretty certain as he slipped out quietly into the street that he should find it shut and locked, for he knew the door well, and he had so rarely seen it open that he couldn't reckon above 3 times in all. It was a low arched portal outside the church, in a dark nook behind a column, and he had such great iron hinges and such a monstrous lock that there was more hinge and lock than door. But what was his astonishment when, coming bareheaded to the church and putting his hand into the dark nook with a certain misgiving that it might be unexpectedly seized, and a shivering propensity to draw it back again, he found that the door, which opened outwards, actually stood ajar. He thought on the first surprise of going back, or of getting a light or a companion, but his courage guided him and aided him immediately, and he determined to ascend it alone. "What have I to fear?" said Trotty. "It's a church. Besides, the ringers may be there and have forgotten to shut the door." And so he went in, feeling his way as he went like a blind man, for it was very dark and very quiet, for the chimes were silent. The dust from the street had blown into the recess, and lying there, heaped up and made it so soft and velvet-like to the foot, there was something startling even in that. The narrow stair was so close to the door, too, that he stumbled at the very first, and shutting the door upon himself by striking it with his foot and causing it to rebound back heavily, he couldn't open it again. There was another reason, however, for going on. Trotty groped his way and went on, up and up, and round and up, higher and higher up. It was a disagreeable staircase for that groping work, so low and narrow that his groping hand was always touching something. It often felt so like a man or a ghostly figure standing up erect and making room for him to pass without discovery, that he would rub the smooth wall upward, searching for its face, and downward, searching for its feet, while a chill tingling crept all over him. Twice or thrice, a door or niche broke the monotonous surface, and then it seemed a gap as wide as the whole church, and he felt on the brink of an abyss, and going to tumble headlong down, until he found the wall again, still up, and round, and up, higher up. At length the dull stifling atmospheres began to freshen, presently to feel quite windy, presently it blew so strong that he could hardly keep his legs, but he got to an arched window in the tower, breast high and holding tight, looked down upon the housetops, on the smoking chimneys, on the blur and blotch of lights, towards the place where Meg was wondering where he was and calling to him perhaps, all kneaded up together in a leaven of mist and darkness. This was the belfry, where the ringers came. He'd caught hold of one of the frayed ropes which hung down through the apertures in the oaken roof. At first he started, thinking it was hair, and then trembled at the very thought of waking the deep bells. The bells themselves were higher. Higher, Trotty, in his fascination or in working out the spell upon him, groped his way. By ladders now, and toilsomely, for it was steep, and not too certain holding for the foot. Up, and climb and clamber, up, higher up, until ascending from the floor, and pausing with his head just raised above its beams, he came among the bells. It was barely possible to make out their great shapes in the gloom, but there they were, shadowy and dark and dumb. A heavy sense of dread and loneliness fell instantly upon him as he climbed into this airy nest of stone and metal. His head went round and round. He listened, then raised a wild "Halloa!" Halloa was mournfully protracted by the echoes. Giddy, confused, and out of breath and frightened, Toby looked about him vacantly and sunk down in a swoon. How are we doing? Are we still dealing with the lag, or is everybody happy? I see you're all in chat. It's okay, Prickly. I don't mind. You carry on. Have you seen the Daddy Voy Bear Skin Man? I'm not sure who that is. Do I want to know? Oh, I do like a good beer burp. I could not bend my finger for 2 months. All right. I'm having another little sip of beer. The thing I like about Dickens is he's political, you know? Don't, Mishi. Don't what? What shouldn't I do? I don't know. What? What? Weird Sisters. Oh, I see. Yeah, it was a play. Terry Pratchett. There's a couple of them that's been turned into plays. That's all. And there's one in Prague. Which one was it though? Something about the guards. Don't read my random yaps. Oh, I'm sorry. Poppy Community and Felicia League of Legends and Skin Spirit Blossoms Springs Roses. Okay. Do I like medieval horror books? I'm not sure I've read any. Which page is Cactalius? We'll see. What do you suggest for medieval horror books? And what pages are we talking about? Love that skin line. League of Legends, Skin, Spirit, Blossom, Springs, Volibear? Volibear? Weird Sisters, yes. I was in Weird Sisters a long time ago. It was amateur dramatics, mind. Tell me more, like he doesn't have a car. Say my name. All right. You're reading one right now. What Terry Pratchett? Which one are you reading? Some uses Tisunt. Some. What should we call you? Some muses. Yeah. Which one? Men at Arms. That's what it is. We're dragging you to the next Men at Arms showing. Okay. His Black Tongue. That's a Discworld one. What? No, hang on. Oh, His Black Tongue. That's the medieval horror. God, I'm getting all mixed up. Adventure games were so good. Oh, I can imagine. When no one is around you. All right, we're getting into some 90s pop era. We're going to get back to Dickens now. I can't remember who I played. I honestly don't know. It was so long ago. I'd have to look at the script and then I might remember. Are we ready? Company of Liars is the medieval one I'm reading right now. Okay. Is this in a compilation? Can you send that? Can you put that in a message? And Finn, would you make a note of that? Because some medieval horror would be pretty good. With Dickens, Dicks never end. Oh please, Detby. Well. Cactus reading is reading what? Reading what's being read? When is this happening? Uh Here we go. Third quarter. Black are the brooding clouds and troubled the deep waters when the sea of thought, first heaving from a calm, gives up its dead. Monsters uncouth. Well, that is a nice line. Let's read that again. Black are the brooding clouds and trouble the deep waters when the sea of thought, first heaving from a calm, gives up its dead. Monsters uncouth and wild arise in premature, imperfect resurrection. The several parts and shapes of different things are joined and mixed by chance, and when, and how, and by what wonderful degrees each separates from each, and every sense and object of the mind resumes its usual form and lives again, no man, though every man is every day the casket of this type of great mystery, can tell. And so when and how the darkness of the night-black steeple changed to shining light, when and how the solitary tower was peopled with a myriad figures, when and how the whispered haunt and hunt him, breathing monotonously through his sleep or swoon, became a voice exclaiming in the waking ears of Trotty, break his slumbers. When an hour he ceased to have a sluggish and confused idea that such things were, companioning a host of others that were not. There are no dates or means to tell, but awake and standing on his feet above the boards where he'd lately lain, he saw this goblin sight. He saw the tower, whither his charmed footsteps had brought him, swarming with dwarf phantoms, spirits, elfin creatures of the bells. He saw them leaping, flying, dropping, pouring from the bells without a pause. He saw them round him on the ground, above him, in the air, clambering from him, by the ropes below, looking down upon him from the massive iron-girded beams, peeping in upon him through the chinks and loopholes in the walls, spreading away and away from him in enlarging circles, as the water ripples give way to a huge stone that suddenly comes plashing in among them. He saw them of all aspects and shapes. He saw them ugly, handsome, crippled, exquisitely formed. He saw them young, he saw them old. He saw them kind, he saw them cruel, he saw them merry, he saw them grim. He saw them dance and heard them sing. He saw them tear their hair and heard them howl. He saw the air thick with them, he saw them come and go incessantly. He saw them riding downwards, soaring upwards, sailing off afar, perching near at hand, all restless and all violently active. Yes. Sorry there. Frame 3-8. Surely you mean 6-7. Ooh, sting. I'm right back here, guys. This is a good stream. Yeah. What if he comes back with milk? No, I came back with cigarettes. I forgot the milk. I'll have to go back out. He saw the air thick with them. He saw them come and go incessantly. He saw them riding downwards, soaring upwards, sailing off afar, perching near at hand, all restless and all violently active. Stone and brick and slate and tile became transparent to him as to them. He saw them in the houses, busy at the sleepers' beds. He saw them soothing people in their dreams. He saw them beating them with knotted whips. He saw them yelling in their ears. He saw them playing softened music on their pillows. He saw them cheering with the songs of birds and the perfume of flowers. He saw them flashing awful faces on the troubled rest of others, from enchanted mirrors with which they carried in their hands. He saw these creatures not only among sleeping men, but waking also, active in pursuits irreconcilable with one another, and possessing or assuming natures the most opposite. He saw one buckling on innumerable wings to increase his speed, another loading himself with chains and weights to retard his. He saw some putting the hands of clocks forward, some putting the hands of clocks backwards, some endeavouring to stop the clock entirely. He saw them representing, here a marriage ceremony, there a funeral, in this chamber an election, in that a ball. He saw everywhere restless and untiring motion. Bewildered by the host of shifting and extraordinary figures, as well as by the uproar of the bells, which all this while were ringing, Trotty clung to a wooden pillar for support, and turned his white face here and there in mute and stunned astonishment. As he gazed, the chimes stopped. Instantaneous change. The whole swarm fainted, their forms collapsed, their speed deserted them. They sought to fly, but in the act of falling died and melted into air. No fresh supplies succeeded them. One straggler leapt down pretty briskly from the surface of the great bell, and alighted on his feet, but he was dead and gone before he could turn around. Some few of the late company who had gambled into the tower remained there, spinning over and over a little longer, but these became at every turn more faint and few and feeble, and soon went the way of the rest. Last of all was one small hunchback, who had gone into an echoing corner where he twirled and floated by himself a long time, showing such perseverance that at last he dwindled to a leg, and even to a foot, before he finally retired. But he vanished in the end, and then the tower was silent. Then, and not before, did Trotty see in every bell a bearded figure of the bulk and stature of the bell, incomprehensibly a figure, and the bell itself, gigantic, grave, and darkly watchful of him as he stood rooted to the ground. Mysterious and awful figures, resting on nothing, poised in the night air of the tower, with their draped and hooded heads merged in the dim roof, motionless and shadowy and dark, although he saw them by some light belonging to themselves. None else was there, each with its muffled hand upon its goblin mouth. He could not plunge down wildly through the opening in the floor, for all the power of motion had deserted him. Otherwise he would have done so. Aye, he would have thrown himself head foremost from the steeple top, rather than have been watching him with eyes that would have waked and watched although the pupils had been taken out. Again, the dread and terror of the lonely place and of the wild and fearful night that reigned there touched him like a spectral hand. His distance from all help, the long, dark, winding, ghost-beleaguered way that lay between him and the earth on which men lived, his being high up there, where it made him dizzy to see the birds fly in the day, cut off from all good people who at such an hour were safe at home and sleeping in their beds. All this struck coldly through him, not as a reflection but a bodily sensation. Meantime his eyes and thoughts and fears were fixed upon the watchful figures, which rendered unlike any figures of this world by the deep gloom and shade and wrapping and enfolding them, as well as by their looks and forms, and supernatural hovering above the floor, were nevertheless as plainly to be seen as were the stalwart oaken frames, crosspieces, bars, and beams, set up there to support the bells. These hemmed them in a very forest of hewn timber, from the entanglements, intricacies, and depths of which, as from among the boughs of a dead wood blighted for their phantom use, and they kept their darkness and unwinking watch. A blast of air, how cold and shrill, came moaning through the tower. As it died away, the great bell, or the goblin of the great bell, spoke. "What visitor is this?" it said. The voice was low and deep, and Trotty fancied that it sounded in the other figures as well. "I thought my name was called by the chimes," said Trotty, raising his hands in an attitude of supplication. I hardly know why I'm here or how I came. I've listened to the chimes these many years. They've cheered me often." "And have you thanked them?" said the bell. "A thousand times," said Trotty. "How?" "I'm a poor man," faltered Trotty, "and could only thank them in words." "And always so?" inquired the goblin of the bell. "Have you never done us wrong in words?" "No," cried Trotty eagerly. "Never done us foul and false and wicked wrong in words?" pursued the goblin of the bell. Trotty was about to answer "never," but he stopped and was confused. "The voice of time," said the phantom, "cries to man, advance. Time is for his advancement and improvement, for his greater worth, his greater happiness, his better life, his progress onward to a goal within its knowledge and its view. And set there in this period when time and he began. Ages of darkness, wickedness, and violence have come and gone. Millions uncountable have suffered, lived, and died, to the point the way before him. Who seeks to turn him back, or stay him on his course, arrests a mighty engine which will strike the meddler dead, and by the fiercer and the wilder ever for its momentary check." I never did so to my knowledge, sir," said Trotty. "It was quite by accident. If I did, I wouldn't go to do it, I'm sure." "Who puts into the mouth of time or of its servants," said the goblin of the bell, "a cry of lamentation for days which have had their trial and their failure, and have left deep traces of it which the blind may see. A cry that only serves the present time by showing men how much it needs their help, when any ears can listen to the regrets for such a past. Who does this, does wrong. And you have done that wrong to us, the chimes." Trotty's first excess of fear was gone, but he had felt tenderly and grateful towards the bells, as you have seen. And when he heard himself arraigned as one who had offended them so weightily, his heart was touched with penitence and grief. "If you knew," said Trotty, clasping his hands earnestly, "or how perhaps you do know, if you know how often you have kept me company, and how often you have cheered me up when I've been low, how you were quite the plaything of my little daughter Meg, almost the only one she ever had, when her first mother died, and when she and me were left alone, you won't bear malice for a hasty word." "Who hears in us the chimes one note bespeaking disregard or stern regard of any hope or joy or pain or sorrow of the many sorrowed throng? Who hears us make response to any creed that gouges human passions and affections, as it gouges the amount of miserable food on which humanity may pine and wither, does us wrong? That wrong you have done us," said the bell. "I have," said Trotty. "Oh, forgive me." "Who hears us echo the dull vermin of the earth, that put us down of crushed and broken nature's form, to be raised up higher than maggots of the time control or can conceive," pursued the goblin bell. "And who does so does us wrong. And you have done us wrong." Not meaning it, said Trotty, in my ignorance, not meaning it. Lastly, and most of all, pursued the bell, who turns his back upon the fallen and disfigured of his kind, abandons them as vile, and does not trace and track with pitying eyes the unfenced precipice by which they fall from good, grasping in their fall some tufts and shreds of that last soil, and clinging to them still when bruised, and dying in the gulf below, does wrong to heaven and man, to time and to eternity, and you have done that wrong. Spare me, cried Trotty, falling on his knees, for mercy's sake. Listen, said the shadow. Listen, cried the other shadows. Listen, said a clear and childlike voice, which Trotty thought he recognised as having heard before. The organ sounded faintly in the church below. Swelling by degrees, the melody ascended to the roof and filled the choir and nave. Expanding more and more, it rose up, higher, higher up. Awakened agitated hearts within the burly piles of oak, the hollow bells, the iron-bound doors, the stairs of solid stone, until the tower walls were insufficient to contain it, and it soared into the sky. No wonder that an old man's breast could not contain a sound so vast and mighty. It broke from that weak prison in a rush of tears, and Trotty put his hands before his face. Listen, said the shadow. Listen, said the other shadows. Listen, said the child's voice. A solemn strain of blended voices rose into the tower. It was a very low and mournful strain, a dirge, and as he listened, Trotty heard his child among the singers. She is dead, exclaimed the old man. Meg is dead. Her spirit calls to me, I hear it. The spirit of your child bewails the dead and mingles with the dead. Dead hopes, dead fancies, dead imaginings of youth, returned the bell. But she is living. Learn from her life a living truth. Learn from the creature dearest to your heart how bad the bad are born. See every bud and leaf plucked one by one from the fairest stem, and know how bare and wretched it may be. Follow her to desperation. Each of the shadowy figures stretched its right arm forth and pointed downward. The spirit of the chimes is your companion, said the figure. Go, it stands behind you. Trotty turned and saw the child. The child Will Fern had carried in the street, the child whom Meg had watched but now asleep. I carried her myself tonight, said Trotty, in these arms. Show him what he calls himself, said the dark figures one and all. The tower opened at his feet. He looked down and beheld his own form lying at the bottom on the outside, crushed and motionless. No more a living man, cried Trotty. Dead? Dead, said the figures all together. Gracious heaven, and the new year past, said the figures. What? He cried, shuddering. I missed my way, and coming on the outside of this tower in the dark, I fell down a year ago? 9 years ago, replied the figures. As they gave the answer, they recalled their outstretched hands where their figures had been, where the bells were. And they rung, their time being coming again. And once again, vast multitudes of phantoms sprung into existence, once again were incoherently engaged as they had been before, once again faded on the stopping of the chimes and dwindled into nothing. What are these? He asked his guide. If I'm not mad, what are these? Spirits of the bells. Their sound upon the air, returned the child. They take such shapes and occupations as the hopes and thoughts of mortals, and the recollections they have stored up give them. And you, said Trotty wildly, what are you? Hush, hush, returned the child. Look here. In a poor, mean room, working at the same kind of embroidery which he had often seen her before, Meg, his own dear daughter, was presented to his view. He made no effort to imprint his kisses on her face. She did not strive to clasp her to his loving heart. He knew that such endearments were for him no more. But he held his trembling breath and brushed away the blinding tears that he might look upon her, that he might only see her. Ah, changed. The light of the clear eye, how dimmed. The bloom, how faded upon her cheek. Beautiful she was, as she ever had been, but hope, oh, where was the fresh hope that had spoken to him like a voice? She looked up from her work at a companion. Following her eyes, the old man started back. In the woman grown, he recognized her at a glance. In the long silken hair, he saw the self-same curls around the lips, the child's expression lingering still. See, in the eyes, now turned inquiringly on Meg, there shone the very look that scanned those features when he brought her home. Then that was this beside him. Then what was this beside him? Looking with awe into its face, he saw something reigning there, a lofty something, undefined and indistinct, which made it hardly more than a remembrance of that child, as yonder figure might be, yet it was the same, and wore the dress. Hark, they were speaking. Meg, said Lilian, hesitating, how often you raise your head from your work to look at me? And we look so altered that they frighten you? Asked Meg. Nay, dear, but you smile at that yourself. Why not smile when you look at me, Meg? I do so, do I not? She answered, smiling on her. Now you do, said Lilian, but not usually. When you think I'm busy and don't see you, look so anxious and so doubtful that I hardly like to raise my eyes. There's little cause for smiling in this hard and toilsome life, but you were once so cheerful. Am I not now? Cried Meg, speaking in a tone of strange alarm and rising to embrace her. Do I make our weary life more weary to you, Lilian? You've been the only thing that made it life, said Lilian, fervently kissing her. Sometimes the only thing that made me care to live, so, Meg. Such work, so many hours, so many days, so many long, long nights of hopeless, cheerless, never-ending work. But to heap up riches, not to live grandly or gaily, not to live upon enough, however coarse, but to earn bare bread, to scrape together just enough to toil upon and want upon and keep alive in us the consciousness of our own hard fate. Oh, Meg, Meg, she raised her voice and twined her arms about her as she spoke like one in pain. How can the cruel world go round and bear to look upon such lives? Lily, said Meg, soothing her and putting her hair from her wet face. Why, Lily, you, so pretty and so young. Meg, she interrupted, holding her at arm's length and looking in her face imploringly. The worst of all, strike me old, Meg, wither me and shrivel me and free me from the dreadful thoughts that tempt me in my own youth. Trotty turned to look upon his guide, but the spirit of the child had taken flight, was gone. Neither did he himself remain in the same place, for Sir Joseph Bowley, friend and father of the poor, held a great festivity at Bowley Hall in honour of the natal day of Lady Bowley. And as Lady Bowley had been born on New Year's Day, which the local newspapers considered an especial pointing of the finger of Providence to number 1 as Lady Bowling's destined figure in creation, it was on New Year's Day that this festivity took place. Bowley Hall was full of visitors. The red-faced gentleman was there, Mr. Filer was there, the great Alderman Cute was there. Alderman Cute had a sympathetic feeling with great people, and had considerably improved his acquaintance with Sir Joseph Bowley on the strength of his attentive letter. Indeed, had become quite a friend of the family since then, and many guests were there. Trotty's ghost was there, wandering about, poor phantom, drearily, and looking for its guide. There was a great dinner in the great hall, at which Sir Joseph Bowley, in his celebrated character of friend and father of the poor, was to make his great speech. Certain plum puddings were to be eaten by his friends and children in another hall first, and at a given signal, friends and children flocking in among their friends and fathers were to form a family ensemblage, with not one manly eye therein unmoistened by emotion. But there was more than this to happen, even more than this. Sir Joseph Bowley, baronet and member of Parliament, was to play at match at skittles, real skittles, with his tenants. "Which quite reminds me," said Alderman Cute, "of the days of the old King Hal, stout King Hal, bluff King Hal. Fine character." "Very," said Mr. Finer dryly, "for marrying women and murdering 'em, considering more than the average number of wives, by the by." "You'll be marrying the beautiful ladies and not murder them, eh?" said Alderman Cute to the heir of Bowley, aged 12. "Sweet boy, we shall have this little gentleman in Parliament now," said the alderman, holding him by the shoulders and looking as reflective as he could, "before we know where we are. We shall hear of his successes at the poll, his speeches in the House, his overtures from governments, his brilliant achievements of all kinds, We shall make our own little orations about him in the Common Council, I'll be bound, before we have time to look about us." The difference of shoes and stockings, Trotty thought, but his heart yearned towards the child, for the love of those same shoeless and stockingless boy predestined by the alderman to turn out bad, who might have been the children of poor Meg. "Richard," moaned Trotty, roaming among the company to and fro. "Where is he? I can't find Richard. Where is Richard?" Not likely to be there if still alive. But Trotty's grief and solitude confused him, and he still went wandering among the gallant company, looking for his guide and saying, "Where is Richard? Show me Richard." He was wandering thus when he encountered Mr. Fish, the confidential secretary, in great agitation. "Bless my heart and soul," cried Mr. Fish. "Where's Alderman Cute? Has anybody seen the alderman?" Seen the alderman? Oh dear, who could ever help seeing the alderman? He was so considerate, so affable. He bore so much in mind the natural desires of folks to see him, that if he had a fault, it was the being constantly on view. And wherever the great people were there, to be sure, attracted by the kindred sympathy between souls, was Cute. Several voices cried that he was in the circle round Sir Joseph. Mr. Fish made way there and found him, and took him secretly into a window near at hand. Trotty joined them, not of his own accord. He felt that his steps were led in that direction. "My dear Alderman Cute," said Mr. Fish, "a little more this way. The most dreadful circumstances has occurred. I have this moment received the intelligence. I think it would be best not to acquaint Sir Joseph with it till the day is over. You understand, Sir Joseph, and will give me your opinion. The most frightful and deplorable event." "Fish," returned the alderman. "Fish, my good fellow, what is the matter? Nothing revolutionary, I hope. No attempted interference with the magistrates?" "Deedles the banker," gasped the secretary. "Deedles' brothers, who was to have been here today, high in office in the Goldsmiths' Company." "Not stopped!" exclaimed the alderman. "It can't be." "Shot himself." "Good God!" "Put a double-barrelled pistol to his mouth in his own counting-house," said Mr. Fish, "and blew his brains out. No motive. Princely circumstances." "Circumstances!" exclaimed the alderman. "A man of noble fortune, one of the most respectable of men. Suicide, Mr. Fish, by his own hand." "This very morning," returned Mr. Fish. The brain," exclaimed the pious alderman, lifting up his hands. "Oh, the nerves, the mysteries of the machine called man. Oh, the little that unhinges it. Poor creatures that we are. Perhaps at dinner, Mr. Fish. Perhaps the conduct of his son, who, I have heard, ran very wild, and was in the habit of drawing bills upon him with the least authority. A most respectable man. One of the most respectable men I ever knew. A lamentable incident, Mr. Fish, a public calamity. I shall make a point of wearing the deepest mourning. A most respectable man. But there is one above. We must submit, Mr. Fish. We must submit." "What, alderman? No word of putting down? Remember justice, your moral boast and pride. Come, alderman, balance those scales. Throw me into this, the empty one. No dinner, and nature's founts in some poor woman dried by starving misery, and rendered obdurate to the claims for which her offspring has authority in Holy Mother Eve? Weigh me the two, you Daniel, going to judgment when your day shall come. Weigh them in the eyes of suffering thousands, audience not unmindful of the grim farce you play. Or supposing that you strayed from your 5 wits, it's not so far to go but that it might be, and laid hands upon the throat of yours, warning your fellows, if you have a fellow, how they croak their comfortable wickedness to raving heads and stricken hearts, what then? The words rose up in Trotty's breast, as if it had been spoken by some other voice within him. Alderman Cute pledged himself to Mr. Fish that he would assist him in breaking the melancholy catastrophe to Sir Joseph when the day was over. Then, before they parted, wringing Mr. Fish's hand in bitterness of soul, he said, "The most respectable of men," and added that he hardly knew, not even he, why such afflictions were allowed on earth. "It's almost enough to make one think, if one didn't know better," said Alderman Cute, "that at times some motion of a capsizing nature was going on in things, which affected the general economy of the social fabric. Deedle's brothers." The skittle playing came off with immense success. Sir Joseph knocked the pins about quite skilfully. Master Bowley took an innings at a shorter distance also, and everybody said that now, when a baronet and the son of a baronet played at skittles, the country was coming round again as fast as it could come. At its proper time, the banquet was served up. Trotty involuntarily repaired to the hall with the rest, for he felt himself conducted thither by some strong impulse than his own free will. The sight was gay in the extreme. The ladies were very handsome, the visitors delighted and cheerful and good-tempered. When the lower doors were opened and the people flocked in their rustic dresses, the beauty of the spectacle was at its height. But Trotty only murmured more and more, "Where is Richard? He should come and help and comfort. I can't see Richard." There had been some speeches made, and Lady Bowley's health had been proposed, and Sir Joseph Bowley had returned thanks and made his great speech, showing by various pieces of evidence that he was the born friend and father, and so forth, and had given as a toast his friends and children and the dignity of labour, when a slight disturbance at the bottom of the hall attracted Toby's notice. After some confusion, noise, and opposition, one man broke through the rest and stood forward by himself. Not Richard, no, but one whom he thought of and had looked for many times. In a scantier supply of light, he might have doubted the identity of that worn man, so old and grey and bent. But with a blaze of lamps upon his gnarled and knotted head, he knew Will Fern as soon as he stepped forth. "What is this?" exclaimed Sir Joseph, rising. "Who gave this man admittance? This is a criminal from prison. Mr. Fish, sir, will you have the goodness?" "A minute," said Will Fern. "A minute. My lady, you was born on this day along with the new year. Get me a minute's leave to speak." She made some intercession for him. Sir Joseph took his seat again with native dignity. The ragged visitor, for he was miserably dressed, looked round upon the company, and made his homage to them with a humble bow. "Gentlefolks," he said, "you've drunk the labourer. Look at me." "Just come from jail," said Mr. Fish. "Just come from jail," said Will, "and neither for the first time, nor the second, nor the third, not for yet the fourth." Mr. Filer was heard to remark testily that 4 times was over the average, and he ought to be ashamed of himself. "Gentlefolks," repeated Will Fern, "look at me. You see I'm at the worst beyond all hurt or harm, beyond your help, for at the time when your kind words or kind actions could have done me good," he struck his hand upon his breast and shook his head, "is gone, with the scent of last year's beans or clover on the air. Let me say a word for these," pointing to the labouring people in the hall, "and when you're met together, hear the real truth spoke about for once." "There's not a man here," said the host, "who would have him here for a spokesman." Like enough, Sir Joseph, I believe it. Not the less true, perhaps, is what I say, and perhaps that's a proof on it. Gentlefolks, I lived many a year in this place. You may see the cottage from the sunk fence over yonder. I've seen the ladies draw it in their books 100 times. It looks well in a picture, I hear say. But there ain't weather in pictures, and maybe 'tis fitter for that than for a place to live. Well, I lived there. How hard, how bitter hard I've lived there, I won't say. Any day in the year and every day you can judge for your own selves. He spoke as he had spoken on the night when Trotty found him in the street. His voice was deeper and more husky, and had a trembling in it now and then, but he never raised it passionately, and seldom lifted it above the firm, stern level of the homely facts he stated. "'Tis harder than you think for gentlefolks to grow up decent, commonly decent, in such a place. That I growed up a man and not a brute says something for me, as I was then. As I am now, there's nothing can be said for me or done for me. I'm past it." "I'm glad this man has entered," observed Sir Joseph, looking round serenely. "Don't disturb him. It appears to be ordained. He's an example, a living example. I hope and trust and confidently expect that it will be not lost upon my friends here." "I dragged on," said Fern after a moment's silence. "Somehow. Neither me nor any other man knows how, but so heavy that I couldn't put a cheerful face upon it, or make believe that I was anything but what I was. Now, gentlemen, you gentlemen that sits at sessions, when you see a man with discontent written upon his face, you says to one another, 'He's suspicious. I has my doubts,' says you, 'about Will Fern. Watch that fellow.' I don't say, gentlemen, it ain't quite natural, but say 'tis so, and from that hour, whatever Will Fern does or lets alone, all one it goes against him." Alderman Cute stuck his thumbs in his waistcoat pockets, and leaning back in his chair and smiling, winking at a neighbouring chandelier, as much to say, "Of course, I told you so. The common cry. Lord bless us, we're all up on this sort of thing, myself and human nature." "Now, gentlemen," said Will Fern, holding out his hands and flushing for an instant on his haggard face, "see how your laws are made to trap and hunt us when we're brought to this. I tries to live elsewhere, and I'm a vagabond. To jail with him. I comes back here, I goes a nutting in the woods and breaks, I don't know, a limber branch or two. To jail with him. One of your keepers sees me on the broad day near one of my own patch of garden with a gun. To jail with him. I's a natural angry word with that man, then when I'm freed again, to jail with him. I cuts a stick, to jail with him. I eats a rotten apple or a turnip, to jail with him. It's 20 mile away, and coming back I begs a trifle on the road, to jail with him. At last, the constable, the keeper, anybody finds me anywhere doing anything, to jail with him, for he's a vagrant and a jailbird known, and jail's the only home he's got." The alderman nodded sagaciously, as he would say, "A very good home too." "Do I say this to serve my cause?" said Fern. "You can give me back my liberty, you can give me back my good name, and you can give me back my innocent niece. Not all the lords and ladies in wide England, but gentlemen dealing with other men like me, begin at the right end. Give us in mercy better homes when we're lying in our cradles. Give us better food when we're working for our lives. Give us kinder laws to bring us back when we're doing a wrong. And don't set jail afore us everywhere we turn. They're at a condensation you can show the labourer then, that he won't take, as ready and grateful as a man can be, for he has a patient, peaceful, willing heart. But you must put his rightful spirit in him first, for whether he's a wreck and a ruin such as me, or is the like of one that stand here now, his spirit is divided from you at this time. Bring it back, gentlefolks, bring it back. Bring it back afore the day comes when even his Bible changes in his altered mind, and the words seem to him to read, as they have sometimes read in my own eyes, in jail, 'Whither thou goest, I cannot go. Where thou lodgest, I do not lodge. Not thy people are not my people, nor thy God my God.'" A sudden stir and agitation took place in the hall. Trotty thought at first that several had risen to eject the man, and hence this change in its appearance, but another moment showed him that the room and all the company had vanished from the sight, and that his daughter was again before him, seated at her work, but in a poorer, meaner garret than before, with no Lilian by her side. The frame at which she had worked was put away upon a shelf and covered up. The chair in which she had sat was turned against the wall. A history was written in these little things and in Meg's grief-worn face. Oh, who could fail to read it? Meg strained her eyes upon her work until it was too dark to see the threads, and when the night closed in, she lighted her feeble candle and worked on. Still her old father was invisible about her, looking down upon her, loving her, how dearly he loved her, and talking to her in a tender voice about the old times and the bells. Though he knew, poor Trotty, though he knew she could not hear him. A great part of the evening had worn away when a knock came at her door and she opened it. A man was on the threshold, a slouching, moody, drunken sloven, wasted by intemperance and vice, with his matted hair and unshorn beard in wild disorder, but with some traces on him, too, of having been a man of good proportion and good features in his youth. He stopped until he had her leave to enter, and she, retiring a pace or two from the open door, silently and sorrowfully looked upon him. Trotty had his wish. He saw Richard. "May I come in, Margaret?" "Yes, come in, come in." It was well that Trotty knew him before he spoke, for with any doubt remaining on his mind, the harsh, discordant voice would have persuaded him that it was not Richard but some other man. There were but 2 chairs in the room. She gave him hers and stood at some short distance from him, waiting to hear what he had to say. He sat, however, staring vacantly at the floor with a lustreless and stupid smile, a spectacle of such deep degradation, of such abject hopelessness, of such miserable downfall, that she put her hands before her face and turned away, lest he should see how much it moved her. Roused by the rustling of her dress or some such trifling sound, he lifted his head and began to speak as if there had been no pause since he entered. "Still at work, Margaret? You work late?" "I generally do." "And early?" "And early." "So she said. She said you never tired and never owned that you tired, nor all the time you lived together, not even when you fainted between work and fasting. But I told you that the last time I came." "You did," she answered, "and I implored you to tell me nothing more. And you made me a solemn promise, Richard, that you never would." "A solemn promise," he repeated with a drivelling laugh and a vacant stare. "A solemn promise, to be sure, a solemn promise." Awakening, as it were, after a time, in the same manner as before, he said with sudden animation, "How can I help it, Margaret, what I am to do? She's been to me again." "Again?" cried Meg, clasping her hands. "Does she think of me so often? Has she been again?" 20 times again," said Richard. "Margaret, she haunts me. She comes behind me in the street and thrusts it in my hand. I hear her foot upon the ashes when I'm at work. Oh, that ain't often. And before I going to turn my head, her voice is in my ear, saying, 'Richard, don't look round, for heaven's love, give her this.' She brings it where I love, she sends it in letters, she taps at the window and lays it on the sill. What can I do? Look at it." He held out in his hand a little purse and chinked the money it enclosed. "Hide it," said Meg, "hide it. And when she comes again, tell her, Richard, that I love her in soul, that I never lie down to sleep, but I bless her and pray for her, that in my solitary work I never cease to have her in my thoughts, that she is with me night and day. And if I died tomorrow, I would remember her with my last breath, but I cannot look upon it." He slowly recalled his hand, crushing the purse together, said with a kind of drowsy thoughtfulness, "I told her so. I told her so, as plain as words could speak. I've taken this gift back and left it at her door a dozen times since then, but she came at last and stood before me face to face. What could I do?" "You saw her?" exclaimed Meg. "You saw her, oh Lilian, my sweet girl, oh Lilian, Lilian." "I saw her," he went on, not answering, but engaged in the same slow pursuit of his own thoughts. "There she stood, trembling. How does she look, Richard? Does she ever speak of me? Is she thinner? My old place at the table, what's my old place? And the frame she taught me her old work on, has she burnt it, Richard?" "There she was, I heard her say it." Meg checked her sobs and, with tears streaming from her eyes, bent over to him to listen, not to lose her breath. With his arms resting on his knees and stooping forward in his chair as if he said the words that were written on the ground in some half-legible character, which it was his occupation to decipher and connect, he went on. "Richard, I have fallen very low, and you may guess how much I have suffered in having this sent back when I can hear it bring to me in my hand to you. But you loved her once, even in my memory, dearly. Others stepped in between you, fears and jealousies and doubts and vanities estranged you from her, but you did love her, even in my memory." "I suppose I did," he said, interrupting himself for a moment. "I did. That's neither here nor there. Oh, Richard, if you ever did, if you ever have any memory for what is gone or lost, take it to her once more, once more. Tell her how I laid my head upon your shoulder, where her own head might have lain, and was so humble to you, Richard. Tell her that you looked into my face, and saw the beauty which she used to praise all gone, and in its place a poor wan hollow cheek that she should weep to see. Tell her everything and take it back, and she will not refuse again. She will not have the heart." So he sat musing and repeating the last words until he woke again and rose. "You won't take it, Margaret?" She shook her head and motioned an entreaty to him to leave her. "Good night, Margaret." "Good night." He turned to look upon her, struck by her sorrow, and perhaps by the pity for himself which trembled in her voice. It was a quick and rapid action, and for the moment some flash of his old bearing kindled in his form. In the next he went as he had come, nor did this glimmer of quenched fire seem to light him to a quicker sense of his debasement. In any mood, in any grief, in any torture of the mind or body, Meg's work must be done. She sat down to her task, and plied it, night, midnight. Still she worked. She had a meagre fire, the night being very cold, and rose at intervals to mend it. The chimes rang 12:30 while she was thus engaged, and when they ceased she heard a gentle knocking at the door. Before she could so much as wonder who was there, at that unusual hour it opened. "O youth and beauty, happy as ye should be, look at this. O youth and beauty, blessed and blessings all within your reach, and working out the ends of your beneficent creator, look at this." She saw the entering figure, screamed its name, cried "Lilian." It was swift and fell upon its knees before her, clinging to her dress. Up, dear Lilian, my own dearest. "Never more, Meg, never more. Here, close to you, holding to you, feeling your dear breath upon my face. Sweet Lilian, darling Lilian, child of my heart, no mother's love can be more tender. Lay your head upon my breast. Never more, Meg, never more. When I first looked into your face, you knelt before me. On my knees before you, let me die, let it be here. You've come back, my treasure. We will live together, work together, hope together, die together. Oh, kiss my lips, Meg. Fold your arms about me, press me to your bosom. Look kindly on me, but don't raise me. Let it be here. Let me see the last of your dear face upon my knees. O youth and beauty, Happy as you should. Look at this, O youth and beauty, working at the ends of your beneficent creator. Look at this. Forgive me, Meg. So dear. So dear, forgive me. I know you do. I see you do, but say so, Meg. She said so with her lips on Lillian's cheek and with her arms twined round. She knew it now, a broken heart. His blessings on you, dearest love. Kiss me once more. He suffered here to sit beside his feet and dry them with her hair. Oh, Meg, what mercy and compassion. As she died, the spirit of the child, returning innocent and radiant, touched the old man with its hand and beckoned him away. Well, that's a good time to come back into the chat there, El Kenan. You guys, I'm giving it heart and soul here, and you talk about shampoo. How we doing? We're on the last chapter, folks. Oh, thank you, Alison. At least somebody is paying attention this evening. I did not know that, no. I'm on the Hellas now. I know you're multitasking. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. What's my hair care routine? Is that a real question, Jaja D? Oh dear, this sounds just a bit serious. I know nothing about Discord. All right. Yeah, true. It's pretty dark, this one. I think the cricket is a little bit more optimistic. Yeah, no, I mean he does that, Dickens. He's let's say he's not the most eloquent or subtle of writers, maybe, but he lays it on thick, and he came from real horrific poverty himself, actually. A very interesting story. Actually, maybe we'll dive into that before next time. I'll do some looking up again, and we'll get to it. We are going to finish it tonight. Is that okay, Finn? Do you have time? It's another 15 pages. 14 pages. So I won't I won't hold out any longer. Yeah, if you want to chat about shampoo, okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. I was only joking. It's whether okay, cool. To answer the hair care, I don't do very much, to be honest. I try to I use rosemary shampoo of some kind, and I don't try and wash it too often. If I can get away with it as little as possible, but obviously sometimes some days are greasier than others, and also if you're doing practical work, you know, if you're doing woodwork or something like that, sometimes you've got to wash it. And And then other than that, very occasionally, there's a company called Jason with double A Jason, American company I believe, and they have this sulfur shampoo, and I chuck some neem in there just for scalp condition when it needs it. But yeah, other than that, when I shower, just water and dry towel. Rosemary's freaking awesome for so many things. Yeah, genetics though as well, I guess. It's about the size of it. Virgin. God, we used to use that as an insult. All right. Here we go. Fourth quarter. Some new remembrance of the ghostly figures in the bells, some faint impression of the ringing of the chimes, some giddy consciousness of having seen the swarm of phantoms reproduced and reproduced until the recollection of them lost itself in the confusion of their numbers. Some hurried knowledge, how conveyed to him he knew not, that more years had passed, and Trotty, with the spirit of the child attending him, stood looking on at mortal company. Fat company, rosy-cheeked company, comfortable company. They were but two, but they were red enough for 10. They sat before a bright fire with a small table between them, and unless the fragrance of hot tea and muffins lingered longer in that room than in most others, the table had seen service very lately. But all the cups and saucers were clean, and in their proper places in the corner cupboard, and the brass toasting fork hanging on its usual nook and spreading its 4 idle fingers out as if it wanted to be a measure for a glove, there remained no other visible tokens of the meal just finished than such as purred and washed their whiskers in the person of the basking cat, and glistened in the gracious, not to say greasy, faces of her patrons. This cosy couple, married evidently, had made a fair division of the fire between them, and sat looking at the glowing sparks that dropped into the grate, now nodding off into a doze, now waking up again with some hot fragment larger than the rest came rattling down, as if the fire were coming with it. It was in no danger of sudden extinction, however, for it gleamed not only in the little room and on the panes of windows, in the glasses on the door, and on the curtain half drawn across them, but in the little shop beyond, a little shop quite crammed and choked with the abundance of its stock, a perfectly voracious little shop, with a maw as accommodating and full as any shark's. Cheese, butter, firewood, soap, pickles, matches, bacon, table beer, peg tops, sweetmeats, boys' kites, birdseed, cold ham, birch brooms, hearthstone, salt vinegar, blacking, red herrings, stationery, lard, mushroom ketchup, stay laces, loaves of bread, shuttlecock eggs, and slate pencil. Everything was fish that came to the net of this greedy little shop, and all articles were in its net. How many other kinds of petty merchandise was there, it would be difficult to say, but balls of packthread, ropes of onions, pounds of candles, cabbage nests and brushes, hung in bunches from the ceiling, like extraordinary fruit, while various odd canisters emitting aromatic smells established the veracity of the inscription over the outer door, which informed the public that the keeper of this little shop was a licensed dealer in tea, coffee, tobacco, pepper, and snuff. Glancing at such of these articles as were visible in the shining of the blaze and the less cheerful radiance of 2 smoky lamps which burnt but dimly in the shop itself, as though its plethora sat heavy on their lungs, and glancing then at one of the 2 faces by the parlour fire, Trotty had small difficulty in recognising in the stout old lady Mrs. Chickenstalker, always inclined to corpulency, even in the days when he had known her as established in the general line, and having a small balance against him in her books. The features of her companion were less easy to him. The great broad chin, with creases in it large enough to hide a finger in, the astonished eyes that seemed to expostulate with themselves for sinking deeper and deeper into the yielding fat of the soft face, the nose afflicted with that disordered action of its functions which is generally termed the snuffles. The short, thick throat and labouring chest, with other beauties of the like description, though calculated to impress the memory, Trotty could at first allot to nobody he had ever known, and yet he had some recollection of them too. At length, in Mrs. Chickenstalker's partner in the general line, and in the crooked and eccentric line of life, he recognised the former porter of Sir Joseph Bowley, an apoplectic innocent who had connected himself in Trotty's mind with Mrs. Chickenstalker years ago. By giving him admission to the mansion, we had confessed his obligation to that lady and drawn on his unlucky head such grave reproach. Trotty had little interest in a change like this, after the changes he had seen, but association is very strong sometimes, and he looked involuntarily beyond the parlour door, where the accounts of credit customers were usually kept in chalk. There was no record of his name. Some names were there, but they were strange to him, and infinitely fewer than of old, from which he argued that the porter was an advocate of ready money transactions, and on coming into the business had looked pretty sharp after the Chickenstalker defaulters. So desolate was Trotty, and so mournful for the youth and promise of his blighted child, that it was a sorrow to him even to have no place in Chickenstalker's ledger. "What sort of night is it, Anne?" inquired the former porter of Sir Joseph Bowley, stretching out his legs before the fire, and rubbing them, as much of them as his short arms could reach, with an air that added, "Here if it's bad, I don't want to go out if it's good." "Blowing and sleeting hard," returned his wife, "and threatening snow, dark and very cold." "I'm glad to think we had muffins," said the former porter in the tone of one who had set his conscience at rest. "It's a sort of night that wants some muffins, likewise crumpets, also Sally Lunn's." The former porter mentioned each successive kind of eatable, as if he were musingly summing up his own actions, after which he rubbed his fat legs as before, and jerking them at the knees to get the fire upon the yet unroasted parts, laughed as if somebody had tickled him. "You're in spirits, Tugby, my dear," observed his wife. The firm was Tugby, late Chickenstalker. "No," said Tugby, "no, not particular. I'm a little elewated. The muffins came so pat." With that he chuckled until he was black in the face, and had so much ado to become of any colour that his fat legs took the strangest excursions into the air. Nor were they reduced to anything like decorum until Mrs. Tugby had thumped him violently on the back and shaken him as if he were a great bottle. "Good gracious, goodness, Lord of bless mercy and save the man!" cried Mrs. Tugby in a great terror. "What's he doing?" Mr. Tugby wiped his eyes and faintly repeated that he found himself a little elewated. "Then don't be so again, that's a dear good soul," said Mrs. Tugby, "if you don't want to frighten me to death with your struggling and fighting." Mr. Tugby said he wouldn't, but his whole existence was a fight in which, if any judgment might be founded on the constantly increasing shortness of his breath and the deepening purple of his face, he was always getting the worst of it. "So it's blowing and a sleeting and a threatening snow, and it's dark and cold and very cold, is it, my dear?" said Mr. Tugby, looking at the fire, and reverting to the cream and marrow of his temporary elevation. "Hard weather indeed," returned his wife, shaking her head. Aye, yes," said Mr. Tugby. "I like Christians in that respect. Some of them die hard, some of them die easy. This one hasn't many days to run, and is making a fight for it. I like him all the better. Oh, there's a customer, my love." Attentive to the rattling door, Mrs. Tugby had already risen. "Now then," said that lady, passing out into the little shop, "what's wanted?" "Oh, I beg your pardon, sir. I'm sure I didn't think it was you." She made this apology to a gentleman in black, who, with his wristbands tucked up and his hat cocked loungingly on one side and his hands in his pockets, sat down astride on the table beer barrel and nodded in return. "This is a bad business upstairs, Mrs. Tugby," said the gentleman. "The man can't live." "Not the back attic can't." Not the back attic, can't? Cried Tugby, coming out into the shop to join the conference. The back attic, Mr. Tugby, said the gentleman, is coming downstairs fast and will be below the basement very soon. Looking by turns at Tugby and his wife, he sounded the barrel with his knuckles for the depth of beer, and having found it, played a tune upon the empty part. The back attic, Mr. Tugby, said the gentleman. Tugby, having stood in silent consternation for some time, is going. Then, said Tugby, returning to his wife, he must go, before he's gone. I don't think you can move him, said the gentleman, shaking his head. I wouldn't take the responsibility of saying it could be done myself. You'd better leave him where he is. He can't live long. It's only the subject, said Tugby, bringing the butter scale down upon the counter with a crash, by weighing his fist on it, that we've ever had a word upon it, she and me, and look what it comes to. He's going to die here after all, going to die upon the premises, going to die in our house. And where should he have died, Tugby? Cried his wife. In the workhouse, he returned. What a workhouse is made for. Not for that, said Mrs. Tugby with great energy. Not for that. Neither did I marry you for that. Don't think it, Tugby. I won't have it. I won't allow it. I'll be separated first and never see your face again. When my widow's name stood over that door, as it did for many years, this house being known as Mason's Chicken Stalkers far and wide, and never known it to be but its honest credit and its good report, when my widow's name stood over that dear door, Tugby, I knew him as a handsome, steady, manly, independent youth. I knew her as the sweetest looking, sweetest tempered girl eyes ever saw. I saw her father, poor old creature. He fell down from the steeple walking in his sleep and killed himself. For the simplest, hardest working, childest hearted man that ever drew the breath of life. And when I turned them out of house and home, may angels turn me out of heaven, as they would, and serve me right. Her old face, which had been a plump and dimpled one before the paid changes which had come to pass, seemed to shine out of her as she said these words. And when she dried her eyes and shook her head and her handkerchief at Tugby with an expression of firmness which made it quite clear was not to be easily resisted, Trotty said, Bless her, bless her. Then he listened with a panting heart for what should follow, knowing nothing yet but that they spoke of Meg. If Tugby had been a little elevated in the parlour, he more than balanced the account by being not a little depressed in the shop where he now stood staring at his wife without attempting a reply, secretly conveying, however, either in a fit of abstraction or as a precautionary measure, all the money from the till into his own pockets as he looked at her. The gentleman upon the table beer cask, who appeared to be some authorised medical attendant upon the poor, was far too well accustomed evidently to little differences of opinion between man and wife to interpose any remark in this instance. He sat softly whistling, and turning little drops of beer out of the tap upon the ground, until there was a perfect calm, when he raised his head and said to Mrs. Tugby, late chicken stalker, There's something interesting about the woman even now. How did she come to marry him? Why, that, said Mrs. Tugby, taking a seat near him, is not the least cruel part of her story, you see. You see, they kept company, she and Richard, many years ago, when they were young and a beautiful couple. Everything was settled, and they were to have been married on New Year's Day, but somehow Richard got it into his head, through what the gentleman told him, that he might do better, and then he'd soon repented that she wasn't good enough for him, and that a young man of spirit had no business to be married. And the gentleman frightened her and made her melancholy and timid of his deserting her, and of her children coming to the gallows, of its being wicked to be man and wife, and a good deal more of it. And in short, they lingered and lingered, and their trust in one another was broken, and so at last was the match. But the fault was his. She would have married him, sir, joyfully. I've seen her heart swell many times afterwards when he passed her in a proud and careless way, and never did a woman grieve more truly for a man than she for Richard when he first went wrong. Oh, he went wrong, did he? Said the gentleman, pulling out the vent peg of the table beer and trying to peep down into the barrel through the hole. Well, sir, I don't know that he rightly understood himself, you see. I think his mind was troubled by their having broke with one another, and that but for being ashamed before the gentleman. And perhaps for being uncertain too how she might take it. He'd have gone through any suffering or trial to have had Meg's promise and Meg's hand again. That's my belief. He never said so, more's the pity. He took to drinking, idling, bad companions, all the fine resources that were to be so much better for him than the home he might have had. He lost his looks, his character, his health, his strength, his friends, his work, everything. He didn't lose everything, Mrs. Tugby, returned the gentleman, because he gained a wife. I want to know how he gained her. Well, I'm coming to it, sir, in a moment. This went on for years and years, sinking lower and lower, she enduring, poor thing, miseries enough to wear her life away. At last he was so cast down and cast out that no one would employ or notice him, and doors were shut upon him, go where he would, applying from place to place and door to door, and coming for the 100th time to one gentleman who had often and often tried him. He was a good workman to the end, and that gentleman, who knew his history, said, I believe you're incorrigible. There's only one person in the world who has the chance of reclaiming you. Ask me to trust you no more until she tries to do so. Something like that, in his anger and vexation. Ah, said the gentleman. Well? Well, sir, he went to her and kneeled to her and said it was so, said it ever had been so, and made a prayer to her to save him. And she... Don't distress yourself, Mrs. Tugby. She came to me that night to ask me about living here. What he once was, she said, is buried in a grave side by side with what I was to him. But I've thought of this, and I will make the trial in the hope of saving him for the love of the light-hearted girl, you remember her, who was to have been married on New Year's Day, and for the love of her Richard. And she said he had come to her from Lillian, and Lillian had trusted him, and she never could forget that. And so they were married. And when they came home here, I saw them. I hope that such prophecies as parted them when they were young may not often fulfil themselves as they did in this case, or I wouldn't be the makers of them for a mine of gold. The gentleman got off the cask and stretched himself, observing, I suppose he used her ill as soon as they were married? I don't think he ever did that, said Mrs. Tugby, shaking her head and wiping her eyes. He went on better for a short time, but his habits was too old and strong to be got rid of. He soon fell back a little and was falling fast back when his illness came so strong upon him. I think he always felt for her. I'm sure he has. I've seen him in his crying fits and tremblings try to kiss her hand, and I've heard him call her Meg and say it was her 19th birthday. There he's been lying now these weeks and months, between him and her baby. She's not been able to do her old work, and by not being able to do her regular, she's lost it, even if she could have done it. How they have lived, I hardly know. I know, said Mr. Tugby, looking at the till, and round the shop and at his wife, and rolling his head with immense intelligence. Like fighting cocks. He was interrupted by a cry, sound of lamentation from the upper story of the house. The gentleman moved hurriedly to the door. My friend, he said, looking back, you didn't discuss whether he should be removed or not. He spared you that trouble, I say. Saying so, he ran upstairs, followed by Mrs. Tugby, while Mr. Tugby panted and grumbled them at leisure, being rendered more than commonly short-winded by the weight of the till, in which there had been an inconvenient quantity of copper. Trotty, with the child beside him, floated up the staircase like a mere air. Follow her, follow her, follow her, he heard the ghostly voices in the bell repeat their words as he ascended. Learn it from the creature dearest to your heart. It was over. It was over. And this was she, her father's pride and joy, this haggard, wretched woman weeping by the bed, if it deserved that name, and pressing to her breast and hanging down her head upon an infant. Who can tell how spare, how sickly, how poor an infant? Who can tell how dear? Thank God, cried Totty, holding up his folded hands. Oh, God be thanked, she loves her child. The gentleman, not otherwise hard-hearted or indifferent to such scenes, than that he saw them every day, and knew that they were figures of no moment in the filer sums, mere scratches in the working of these calculations, laid his hand upon the heart that beat no more, and listened for the breath, and said, His pain is over. It's better as it is. Mrs. Tugby tried to comfort her with kindness. Mr. Tugby tried philosophy. Come, come, he said with his hands in his pockets. You mustn't give way, you know. That won't do. You must fight up. What could have become of me if I had been given away when I was a porter? We had as many as 6 runaway carriages doubles at our door in one night. But I fell back upon my strength of mind and didn't open it. Again Trotty heard the voices saying, Follow her. He turned toward his guide and saw it rising from him, passing through the air. Follow her, it said, and vanished. He hovered round her, sat down at her feet, looked up into her face for one trace of her old self, listened for one note of her old pleasant voice. He flitted round the child, so wan, so prematurely old, so dreadful in its gravity, so plaintive in its feeble, mournful, miserable wail. He almost worshipped it. He clung to it as her only safeguard, as the last unbroken link that bound her to endurance. He set his father's hope and trust on the frail baby, watched her every look upon it as she held it in her arms, and cried 1,000 times, She loves it. God be thanked, she loves it. He saw the woman tend her in the night, return to her when her grudging husband was asleep and all was still, encourage her, shed tears with her, set nourishment before her. He saw the day come and the night again, the day, the night, the time go by, the house of death relieved of death, the room left to herself and to the child. He heard it moan and cry. He saw it harass her and tire her out, and when she slumbered in exhaustion, drag her back to consciousness and hold her with his little hands upon the rack. But she was constant to it, gentle with it, patient with it, patient. Was its loving mother in her inmost heart and soul, and had its being knitted up with hers as when she carried it unborn. All this time she was in want, languishing away in dire and pining want with the baby in her arms. She wandered here and there in quest of occupation, with its thin face lying in her lap, looking up in hers. Nor did any work for any wretched sum, a day and night of labour for as many farthings as there were figures on the dial. If she had quarrelled with it, if she had neglected it, if she had looked upon it with a moment's hate, if in the frenzy of instant she had struck it, no. His comfort was, she loved it always. She told no one of her extremity, and wandered abroad in a day, lest she should be questioned by her only friend. For any help she received from her hands occasioned fresh disputes between the good woman and her husband, and it was new bitterness to be the daily cause of strife and discord where she owed so much. She loved it still. She loved it more and more. But a change fell on the aspect of her love one night. She was singing faintly to it in its sleep and walking to and fro to hush it, when the door was softly opened and a man looked in. For the last time, he said. William Fern. For the last time. He listened like a man pursued and spoke in whispers. Margaret, my race is nearly run. I couldn't finish it without a parting word with you, with one grateful word. What have you done? She asked, regarding him with terror. He looked at her but gave no answer. After a short silence he made a gesture with his hand as if he set her question by, as if he brushed it aside and said, It's long ago now, Margaret, now. But that night is as fresh in my memory as ever 'twas. We little thought then," he added, looking round, "that we should ever meet like this. You're a child, Margaret. Let me have it in my arms. Let me hold your child." He put his hat upon the floor and took it, and he trembled as he took it from head to foot. "Is it a girl?" "Yes." He put his hand before its little face. "See, I'm grown weak, Margaret. When I want the courage to look at her, let her be a moment. I won't hurt her. It's long ago, but what's her name?" "Margaret," she answered quickly. "I'm glad of that," he said. "I'm glad of that." He seemed to breathe more freely, and after pausing for an instant, took his hand away and looked upon the infant's face, but covered it again immediately. "Margaret," he said, and gave her back the child. "It's Lillian's." "Lillian's?" "I held the same face in my arm when Lillian's mother died and left her." "When Lillian's mother died and left her," she repeated wildly. "How shrill you speak. Why do you fix your eyes upon me so, Margaret?" She sunk down in the chair and pressed the infant to her breast and wept over it. Sometimes she released it from her embrace and looked anxiously in its face and strained it to her bosom again. At those times when she gazed upon it, then it was that something fierce and terrible began to mingle with her love. Then it was that her old father quailed. "Follow her," was sounded through the house. "Learn it from the creature dearest to your heart." "Margaret," said Fern, bending over her and kissing her upon the brow, "I thank you for the last time. Good night. Goodbye. Put your hand in mine and tell me you'll forget me from this hour and try to think the end of me was here." "What have you done?" she asked again. "There'll be a fire tonight," he said, removing from her. "There'll be fires this winter time to light the dark nights, east, west, north and south. When you see the distant sky red, they'll be blazing. When you see this distant sky red, think of me no more. Or if you do, remember what a hell was lighted up inside of me, and think you see its flames reflected in the clouds. Good night, goodbye." She called to him, but he was gone. She sat down stupefied until her infant roused her to a sense of hunger, cold, and darkness. She paced the room with it the livelong night, hushing it and soothing it. She said at intervals, "Like Lillian when her mother died and left her." Why was her step so quick, her eyes so wild, her love so fierce and terrible whenever she repeated those words? "But it is love," said Trotty. "It is love. She'll never cease to love it, my poor Meg." She dressed the child next morning with unusual care. Vain expenditure of care upon such squalid robes. And once more tried to find some means of life. It was the last day of the old year. She tried till night and never broke her fast. She tried in vain. She mingled with an abject crowd who tarried in the snow until it pleased some officer appointed to dispense the public charity, the lawful charity, not that once preached upon a mount, to call them in and question them and say to this one and that one, "Go to such a place," and to that one, "Come next week," to make a footfall of another wretch and pass him here and there from hand to hand, from house to house, until he wearied and lay down to die, or started up and robbed, and so became a higher sort of criminal whose claims allowed of no delay. Here too she failed. She loved her child, and wished to have it lying on her breast, and that was quite enough. It was night, a bleak, dark, cutting night. When pressing the child close to her for warmth, she arrived outside the house she called home. She was so faint and giddy that she saw no one standing in the doorway until she was close upon it, about to enter. Then she recognised the master of the house, who had so disposed himself with his person it was not difficult as to fill up the whole entry. "Oh," he said softly, "you've come back?" She looked at the child and shook her head. "Don't you think you've lived here long enough, without enough paying any rent? Don't you think that without money you've been a pretty constant customer at this shop now?" said Mr. Tugby. She repeated the same mute appeal. "Suppose you try and deal somewhere else," he said. "I suppose you provide yourself with another lodging. Come, don't you think you could manage it?" She said in a low voice that it was very late. Tomorrow. "Now I see what you want," said Tugby, "and what you mean. You know there are two parties in the house about you, and you delight in setting them by their ears. I don't want any quarrels. I'm speaking softly to avoid a quarrel. But if you don't go away, I'll speak out loud, and you shall cause words high enough to please you, but you shan't come in. That I'm determined." She put her hair back with her hand and looked in sudden manner at the sky and the dark lowering distance. "This is the last night of an old year, and I won't carry ill blood and quarrellings and disturbances into a new one to please you nor anybody else," said Tugby, who was quite a retail friend and father. "I wonder you ain't ashamed of yourself to carry such practices into a new year. If you haven't any business in the world but to be always giving away and always making disturbances between man and wife, you'd be better off out of it. Go along with her. Follow her to desperation." Again the old man heard the voices. Looking up, he saw the figures hovering in the air and pointing where she bent down the dark street. "She loves it," he exclaimed in agonized entreaty for her. "Chimes, she loves it still." "Follow her." The shadow swept upon the track she had taken like a cloud. He joined in the pursuit and kept close to her. He looked into her face. He saw the same fierce and terrible expressions mingling with her love and kindling in her eyes. He heard her say, "Like Lilian. To be changed like Lilian," and her speed redoubled. For something to awaken her, for any sight or sound or scent to call upon tender recollections in a brain on fire, for any gentle image of the past to rise before her. "I was her father, I was her father," cried the old man, stretching out his hands to the dark shadows flying on above. "Have mercy on her and on me. Where does she go? Turn her back, I was her father." But they only pointed to her as she hurried on and said, "To desperation. Learn it from the creature dearest to your heart." 100 voices echoed it. The air was made of breath expanded in these words. He seemed to take them in at every gasp he drew. They were everywhere, not to be escaped, and still she hurried on. The same light in her eyes, the same words in her mouth. "Like Lilian? To be changed like Lilian?" All at once she stopped. "Oh, turn her back!" exclaimed the old man, tearing his white hair. "My child, Meg, turn her back! Great Father, turn her back!" In her scanty shawl she wrapped the baby warm. With her fevered hands she smoothed its limbs, composed its face, arranged its mean attire. In her wasted arms she folded it, as though she never would resign it more, and with her dry lips kissed it in a final pang and last long agony of love. Putting its tiny hand up to her neck, and holding it there within its dress, next to her distracted heart, she set its sleeping face against hers, closing steadily against her, and sped onward to the river, to the rolling river, swift and dim, where winter night sat brooding like the last dark thoughts of many who had sought a refuge there before her, where scattered lights upon the banks gleamed sullen red and dull, as torches that were burning there to show the way to death, where no abode of living people cast its shadow on the deep, impenetrable, melancholy shade. To the river, to that portal of eternity, her desperate footsteps tended with the swiftness of its rapid waters running to the sea. He tried to touch her as she passed him, going down to its dark level, but the wild, distempered form, the fierce and terrible love, the desperation that had left all human check or hold behind, swept by him like the wind. He followed her. She paused a moment on the brink before the dreadful plunge. He fell down on his knees and in a shriek addressed the figures in the bells now hovering above them. "I have learnt it," cried the old man, "from the creature dearest to my heart. Save her, save her." He could wind his fingers in her dress, could hold it. As the words escaped his lips, he felt his sense of touch return and knew that he had attained her. The figures looked down steadfastly upon him. "I have learnt it," cried the old man. "Oh, mercy on me in this hour, if in my love for her, so good and good, I slandered nature in the breasts of mothers, rendered desperate. Pity my presumption, wickedness, and ignorance, and save her." He felt his hold relaxing. They were silent still. "Have mercy on her," he exclaimed, "as one in whom this dreadful crime has sprung from love perverted, from the strongest, deepest love we fallen creatures know. Think what her misery must have been when such seed bears such fruit, heaven meant her to be good. There is no loving mother on the earth who might not come to this if such a life had gone before. Oh, merciful on my child, even at this pass, means mercy to her and dies herself, and perils her immortal soul to save it." She was in his arms. He held her now. His strength was like a giant's. "I see the spirit of the Chimes among you," cried the old man, singling out the child and speaking in some inspiration which their looks conveyed to him. "I know that our inheritance is held in store for us by time. I know there is a sea of time to rise one day, before which all who wrong us or oppress us will be swept away like leaves. I see it on the flow. I know that we must trust and hope, and neither doubt ourselves nor doubt the good in one another. I've learnt it from the creature dearest to my heart. I clasp her in my arms again. O spirits merciful and good, I take your lessons to my breast along with her. O spirits merciful and good, I'm grateful." He might have said more, but the bells, the old familiar bells, his own dear, constant, steady friends, the chimes, began to ring the joy peals for a new year. So lustily, so merrily, so happily, so gaily, that he leapt upon his feet and broke the spell that bound him. "And whatever you do, father," said Meg, "don't eat tripe again without asking some doctor whether it's likely to agree with you. For how you have been going on, good gracious." She was working with her needle at the little table by the fire, dressing her a simple gown with ribbons for her wedding. So quietly, happy, so blooming and youthful, so full of beautiful promise, that he uttered a great cry as if it were an angel in his house, and then he flew to clasp her in his arms. But he caught his feet in the newspaper which had fallen on the hearth, and somebody came rushing in between them. "No," cried the voice of this same somebody, a generous and jolly voice it was. "Not even you, not even you. The first kiss of Meg in the new year is mine. Mine. I've been waiting outside the house this hour to hear the bells and claim it. Meg, my precious prize, a happy year, a life of happy years, my darling wife." And Richard smothered her with kisses. "You never in all your life saw anything like Trotty after this. I don't care where you have lived or what you have seen. You never in all your life saw anything at all approaching him." He sat down in his chair and beat his knees and cried. He sat down in his chair and beat his knees and laughed. He sat down in his chair and beat his knees and laughed and cried together. He got out of his chair and hugged Meg. He got out of his chair and hugged Richard. He got out of his chair and hugged them both at once, and he kept running up to Meg and squeezing her fresh face between his hands and kissing it, going from her backwards not to lose sight of it, and running up again like a figure in a magic lantern. And whatever he did, he was constantly sitting himself down in his chair and never stopping in it for one single moment, being, that's the truth, beside himself with joy. "And tomorrow's your wedding day, my pet," cried Trotty, "for a real happy day." "Today," cried Richard, shaking hands with him. "Today. The chimes are ringing in the new year. Hear them." They were ringing. Bless their sturdy hearts, they were ringing. Great bells as they were, melodious, deep-mouthed, noble bells, cast in no common metal, made by no common founder when they had ever chimed like that before. "But today, my pet," said Trotty, "you and Richard had some words today." "Because he's such a bad fellow, father," said Meg, "aren't you, Richard? Such a headstrong, violent man. He'd have made no more of speaking his mind to that great alderman and putting him down, I don't know where more, than he would of kissing Meg," suggested Richard, doing it again. "No, not a bit more," said Meg. "But I wouldn't let him, father. Where would have been the use?" "Richard, my boy," cried Trotty, "you was turned up trumps originally, and trumps you must be till you die, but you were crying by the fire tonight, my pet, when I came home. Why did you cry by the fire?" "I was thinking of all the years we've passed together, father, only that, and thinking that you might have missed me and be lonely." Trotty was backing off to that extraordinary chair again, when the child, who'd been awakened by the noise, came running up, half-dressed. "Why, here she is," cried Trotty, catching up. "It's little Lilian. Here we are and here we go. Oh, here we are and here we go, and here we are and here we go, and Uncle Will too," stopping in his trot to greet him heartily. "Oh, Uncle Will, the vision that I had tonight through lodging you. Oh, Uncle Will, the obligations you've laid me under by your coming, my good friend." Before Will Fern could make the least reply, a band of music burst into the room, attended by a lot of neighbours screaming, "A Happy New Year, Meg, a happy wedding," many of them, and other fragmentary good wishes of that sort. The drum, who was a private friend of Trotty's, then stepped forward and said, "Trotty Veck, my boy, it's got about that your daughter's going to be married tomorrow. There ain't a soul that knows you that don't wish you well, or knows her and don't wish her well, or that knows you both and don't wish you all both the happiness of the new year can bring. And here we are to play it in and dance it in accordingly," which was received with a general shout. The drum was rather drunk by the by, but never mind. "What a happiness it is, I'm sure," said Trotty, "to be so esteemed. How kind and neighbourly you are. It's all along my dear daughter. She deserves it." And they were ready for a dance in half a second, Meg and Richard at the top, and the drum was on the very brink of leathering away with all his power, when a combination of prodigious sounds was heard outside, and a good-humoured comely woman of some 50 years of age or thereabouts came running in, attended by a man wearing a stone pitcher of terrific size, and closely followed by the marrow and bones and cleavers and the bells, not the bells, but a portable collection on a frame. Trotty said, "It's Mrs. Chickenstalker," and sat down and beat his knees again. "Married, and not tell me, Meg?" cried the good woman. "Never. I couldn't rest on the last night of the old year without coming to wish you joy. I would have done it, Meg, not if I had been bedridden, so here I am, and as it's New Year's Eve and the eve of your wedding too, my dear, I had a little flip made and brought it with me." Mrs. Chickenstalker's notion of a little flip did honour to her character. The pitcher steamed and smoked and reeked like a volcano, and the man who carried it was faint. "Mrs. Tugby," said Trotty, who'd been going round and round in her in ecstasy. "I should say, Mrs. Chickenstalker, bless me, your heart and soul. Happy New Year, and many of them, Mrs. Tugby," said Trotty when he had saluted her. I should say, Chickenstalker, this is William Firm and Lilian." The worthy dame, to his surprise, turned pale and very red. "Not Lilian Fern, whose mother died in Dorsetshire?" she said. Her uncle answered yes. And meeting hastily, they exchanged some hurried words together, of which the upshot was that Mrs. Chickenstalker shook him by both hands, saluted Trotty on his cheek again of her own free will, and took the child to her capacious breast. "Well, Fern," said Trotty, pulling on his right-hand muffler, "not the friend you was hoping to find?" "Aye," returned Will, putting a hand on each of Trotty's shoulders. "I'd like to prove a most as good a friend, if that can be as one I found." "Oh," said Trotty, "please to play up there. Will you have the goodness?" To the music of the band, the bells, the marrow bones, and the cleavers all at once. And while the chimes were yet in lusty operation out of doors, Trotty, making Med and Richard's second couple, led off Mrs. Chickenstalker down the dance, and danced in it a step unknown before or since, found in his own peculiar trot. Had Trotty dreamed? Or are his joys and sorrows and the actors in them but a dream? Himself a dream? The teller of his tale a dream waking but now? If it be so, O listener, dear to him in all his visions, try to bear in mind the stern realities from which these shadows come, and in your sphere, none is too wide and none too limited for such an end, endeavour to correct, improve, and soften them. So may the new year be a happy one to you, happy to many more whose happiness depends on you. So may each year be happier than the last, and not the meanest of our brethren or sisterhood debarred their rightful share in what our great Creator formed them to enjoy. Happy New Year. Did you all think it was going to end darkly? Thanks, guys. It was a happy ending. He had some bad tripe and he had a bad dream. Victorian medicine being what it was. Skull. Thank you. Yeah, some ups and downs, not only just the technical stuff. Dickens doesn't half lay it on thick. But there it is. Yeah. I think the message there is that we can all live in high and mighty whatever fancy lifestyles, but really it doesn't take much to offer kindness, does it? Really, and maybe it's quite easy to help other people feel better. I have unlimited data, so I'm all right. And we've all had bad tripe before. Tell me about it. Yeah, well, I had some humdinger of some dreams. Dickens laying it on thick. Yeah, that's what she said. Exactly, Alison. You got it. Yeah, thanks for sticking through, guys. It's pretty cool. So on the 4th, the plan is to start the 3rd of Dickens's Christmas stories, The Cricket on the Hearth, and we'll finish up on the 6th. I'm not sure about start time on the 4th. We might have to start a little bit later. I don't know. What did you hear, Judge? I don't know what you heard. Yes, I did. You did some reading about Dickens's childhood. Oh yeah, it was horrendous. Victorian England. I mean, the sad truth is, of course, that many people in the world still live in that kind of abject poverty. And that so much was won in the 20th century, and so much was improved. Yeah. And maybe in some quarters it's being pushed back. And I think for myself at least, I don't know about anybody else, I tried to live with the the knowledge that I'm incredibly lucky. Actually, I may not be rich, but I have comforts. No, I'm just on a short trip, and I will be somewhere else, reading somewhere else. Did Mango kick you out of the house? No, I put him in a ball store for naughty dogs. Yeah. Whatever. Um, Favorite films? I don't know. Yes, Alison. Yeah. Mm, I watched a film on the old, the unmentionable massive swoosh tick company, who I don't want to talk about, but we all know. I think one of the main big streamers, and but I can't remember what it's called. Of course, classic. Um, I didn't eat Mango. He went to a ball store, guys. What is? Anyway, let's have a look now. Go through look my history. Yes. Um. What was it called? Oh, my brain. No, 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 no. Okay, you don't want to tell me, dude. Relay. It was called Relay. It's about some um geezer who he what did oh you have you watched Lawrence of Arabia? Oh, a long time ago. Relay is about a guy who helps people who are like whistleblowers for companies, but then they decide not to become whistleblowers. It's quite an interesting pretext, and it was quite a well written film actually. And I'm normally quite good at working out the twist, but it had me going. Am I taking a break from tours and fur? Which fur? A borstal is where it's kind of like it's where naughty boys go, girl boys and girls go. It's like the stop before prison because you're too young to go to prison. I'm joking, of course. I'm not taking a break from tours. I'm just taking a break from the kind of city tours I've been doing. I'd love to do more private tours. Um, and yeah, like Juvie in America, kind of. What is Incendies? I do not know what that is. Quantum Leap. What the series? It's excellent. One of my faves. Papillon. Oh my god. Yeah. Okay. What is Thai BL? What does BL mean? Um, Good night, Bobby Check. Bobby Check, are you heading out for the evening? Uh, you're all on the you're all on the book recommendations now. No, he's not. He's at home. Just be certain about this. Mango's at home. The new Frankenstein. Yes, I've heard that as well. I'm presently into a TV series at the moment. I don't know if I like horrific twists, but okay. Do not tell him what. BL. Is it something to do with boys' love? Okay, something to do with lady boys, I guess maybe. Um. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, whatever. Sure. Why not? Um. The Tunnel. I'm watching The Tunnel at the moment, which is a series based on a series called The Bridge, which is an American TV program which is based on the Scandi series The Bridge, which is based on a Scandi detective noir novel. Right? Does that make sense? Anyway, so there it is. So is Boys Love basically like the Thai version of Heated Rivalry? Is that um, yeah, The Bridge. Yeah. Well, and they're all good, by the way. But I knew immediately this English one because it's England, France. The tunnel. You see the Channel Tunnel. Um, no, I haven't. No, I'm not. Oh, God, I don't have enough time to catch up on everything that's at the moment. That's why I'm watching The Tunnel. But it seems like there's a good bit of hype about it. I might want to watch it at some point. X-Files, yeah, could rewatch those. They're always good fun. You pay your taxes. That's good. We should all do that. Yeah. All right, folks. Yes, the tunnel is the Eurostar version of the bridge. Exactly. I have to say, there's sometimes you're like, how did you drive that distance in that time? But never mind. Let's not look too much at the logistics. Let's raid over to Sir Dunny's stream. Oh yeah, how do I do that? How do I do raiding? Someone tell me how to do raiding. Oh. Oh, I think I've just worked out how to shrink my thing. Is it shrunk now? Anyway, whatever. How do I raid? Nobody's helping me with the raid. How do I raid Sir Dunny's stream? Can you help me, please? We all hold hands and jump into the picture like Mary Poppins. You're small. Yeah, because apparently that's how I would use less frame rate or something. Anyway, next time. When will I be back for TP? Oh, that's not for me. No way. You type hashtag raid and then type Sir Dunny. Alright. Alright, here we go. Are we going to do this? We're going to raid and then I'm going to check out. Hang on. / No, that's a question mark. Jesus. Raid. Sir Dunny. No matches. What? Oh, and then press enter. I see. Right. Enter. Channel. I see. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night, y'all. 59 viewers raided right now. Raid. Good night, folks. I'm checking out of here. See you soon. Timer. I don't see the timer, but I guess I should do. Yeah. Cool. My pleasure. It's fun. I'm so happy that you all find it entertaining and soothing, and I like to do it too. Cool. I guess that are we raided yet? I don't know how it works. Good night. Good night to. Are we? How long does it take to get to? I'm going to wait until we get to Dunny's chat. Are we over there yet? I don't know how this works. Dunny. The raid has been created. He's talking to you. Oh, I